Hola amigos, feliz viernes. Hoy es viernes. Yo soy Rory y estoy contento de estar aquí contigo. This is my first video viernes lesson back from our summer Spanish immersion programs where we worked with healthcare folks, teachers, families, general adults working on their Spanish, high school kids on a high school program. It was a great summer, and but it's also nice to be back into the routines of helping you with your medical Spanish day in and day out, week in, week out. So one of the things, every time that I survey our community about the sorts of things that you all want to learn and why you're working on your medical Spanish, one of those most important things, always in the top three, is I just want to build better rapport with my patients. I want to be able to connect with my patients. I want to be able to have some general chit-chat with my patients. And so today's video viernes lesson is las 9 palabras interrogativas, so 9 question words in Spanish, y temas para aumentar la confianza, and some topics that you can implement today, tomorrow, to begin building some more rapport with your patients. So let's jump in. First of all, las 9 interrogativas, the 9 question words. So, ¿quién is who? ¿Cuál is which? Oftentimes it sounds like what, but it is which. And ¿qué is what? ¿Cuándo is when? ¿A qué hora is at what time? So it could be similar to cuando, but when you're speaking time specific, you might be able to implement ¿a qué hora? ¿Dónde? Where? ¿Por qué? Why? ¿Cuánto or cuántos? How much or how many? If it's plural, it's how many, right? If it's singular, cuánto, it's how much. And then ¿cómo? How, okay? ¿Cómo also feels like what sometimes. So the short story is that in English, we use what in some cases where we have to use ¿cómo, and we use what in some cases where we have to use ¿cuál, and then we use what in other cases where we naturally would use ¿qué, the traditional equivalent for what in Spanish. So anyway, we'll look at some of those examples. All right, so let's start with ¿quién? We're going to take each one, look at some examples, etc., of some questions that you could be asking your patients to build some rapport. So ¿quién? Who? ¿Quién es su contacto en caso de emergencia? Who's your emergency contact? ¿Con quién vive? Who do you live with? Mi hermano, my brother, mi hermana, sister, mi hijo, my son, mi hija, my daughter, mi pareja, my partner. Pareja is any kind of intimate partner. It's non-specific. It's not gender-specific at all. Esposo, esposa, husband, wife, novio, novia, boyfriend, girlfriend. Mi tío, tía, uncle or aunt. Mi primo, prima, cousin. Okay, so a few family members that might be a part of the answer to con quien vive, con quien vive. All right, maybe these are a little less rapport building and information that you want to know clinically. All right, ¿cuál? ¿Cuál prefiere? Which do you prefer? ¿Cuál prefiere? ¿Pastillas o jarabes? Do you prefer pills or syrups? Interesting cultural note. Some people in Latin America define themselves in, as far as medicine and taking medicine goes, as, I'm a good pill taker or I'm not a good pill taker. And if I'm not a good pill taker, if you prescribe me pills, it's not going to happen probably. So keep that in mind. If there's a syrup option, maybe you ask the question, or another form. Okay, so ¿cuál prefiere? Which do you prefer? Pastillas o jarabes? ¿Cuál es su preferencia? What's your preference? In English, we would say what? In Spanish, it's ¿cuál es? And this is a little deeper discussion, but anytime you have the verb ser, like anytime you want to ask the question, what is, and you're using the verb ser, it's always going to be ¿cuál, okay? Because you're looking for information, okay? All right, muy bien. ¿Cuál es su, what is your, for example, ¿cuál es su apellido? What's your last name? ¿Cuál es su dirección? What's your address? ¿Cuál es su número de teléfono? What's your phone number? ¿Cuál es su fecha de nacimiento? What's your date of birth? Now, for all of these, you might be thinking, Rory, that sounds an awful lot like K. How come we're not asking the question KS? Here's the thing. When we're using the verb ser, S, we want to ask the question, what is? It has to be ¿cuál es? Because we're asking for information. What happens when we ask the question KS? we're asking for a definition. ¿Qué es esto? Es mi computadora. That's the definition, right? ¿Cuál es su nombre? What's your name? Information. ¿Cuál es su apellido? What's your last name? Information. Okay? All right. ¿Qué es esto? Es una camisa. ¿Y esto? Es un micrófono. So that's asking the definition of what something is. But when you want information, it's always going to be ¿cuál es? Let's move into ¿qué right now. All right, ¿qué meaning what? ¿En qué trabaja? What do you do for work? I actually really like this question. You could ask the question, what's your profession? ¿Cuál es su profesión? But it kind of naturally implies professional employment. If you just want to know, what's your job? What do you do for work? ¿En qué trabaja? It's literally in what do you work, okay? En limpieza, in cleaning. En construcción, in construction. En jardinería, in landscaping. And maybe any particular name of employer or name of work, right? And Walmart, and McDonald's, and lo que sea, okay? En casa, at home. En un restaurante, in a restaurant. En una fábrica, in a factory. En una finca, on a farm. En una planta empacadora, like a packing plant, so meat packing, etc. All right, bien. So, en que trabaja, a handful of more labor-intensive jobs that could be a part of your patient's answer. Another use of ¿qué le molesta hoy? What's bothering you today? ¿Qué le molesta hoy? All right, moving on to ¿cuándo? ¿Cuándo? ¿Cuándo cumples años? This is a perfect question for a kid, right? ¿Cuándo cumples años? Now, you've all heard of cumpleaños, right? When you want to know someone's date of birth or something, we saw that question earlier, ¿cuál es su fecha de nacimiento? We're not asking ¿cuándo es tu feliz cumpleaños? When's your happy birthday? But ¿cuándo cumples años is when you could ask, when's your birthday? Okay, but date of birth, a little more clinical. We saw that before. ¿Cuál es su fecha de nacimiento? So, ¿cuándo cumples años? When is your birthday? El blank day. So, el 5 de julio. That's my cumpleaños. El 5 de julio. So, we need to know the months in order to know the answers to these questions, right? Enero, January. Febrero, February. Marzo, March. Abril, April. Mayo, May. Junio, June. Julio, July. Agosto, August. Septiembre, September. Octubre, October. Noviembre, November. Y diciembre, December. Now, most of these are super close cognates to English, except for enero. Enero's the one that you need to set aside and make sure you remember that, because it doesn't look like January at all. The rest look like the months in English. Okay, ¿a qué hora is our next question word? At what time? ¿A qué hora se despierta en la mañana? What time do you get up in the morning? A las blank de la mañana. A las 5 de la mañana. A las 6 de la mañana. A las 7 de la mañana. Whatever. Or a las something de la tarde. So de la mañana, AM. De la tarde, PM. ¿A qué hora se acuesta en la noche? What time do you go to bed at night? A las 10 de la noche. A las 9 de la noche. A las 11 de la noche. Okay? All right, giving some times. So, ¿a qué hora? At what time? ¿Dónde? Where? ¿De dónde es usted? Where are you from? ¿De dónde es usted? ¿Dónde estudian sus hijos? Where do your kids go to school? ¿Dónde estudian sus hijos? Okay. ¿Por qué? The question why. All right. ¿Por qué? Why? ¿Por qué salió de su país? Don't take offense at the question. If you're having a conversation and it comes up, está bien. We could ask many other why questions. This is just the one that occurred to me today. Por necesidad, by necessity. Por la economía, because of the economy. Para más oportunidades, for more opportunities. Para mejor trabajo, for better work. Para estar con familia, to be with family. A quick question that might be coming to mind is, why are some of these por and others para? Okay, so we've got a full sort of course about por y para that you could check out to see the differences between the two. And I've done some free blog series on those as well, Video Viernes series. So I'll try to link up to those so you can see them. But in this case, Siri thought that she was going to answer the question for me. Okay, in this case, por necesidad, por la economía, both of these things are the reasons or the motives because of. You could say because of in this case. And then for all of these paras, you could also interpret it as in order to. So because of por, in order to para. Those are some stark differences between the two. These are really tricky because in English we just say for, or in a lot of ways, and it becomes confusing. All right, let's move on to cuántos. Cuántos, how much, how many. ¿Cuántos años tienes or tiene? How old are you? ¿Cuántos años tiene con? How many years do you have with, por ejemplo, su pareja, your partner? Su trabajo, your job. ¿Cuántos hijos tiene? How many children do you have? ¿Hace cuánto tiempo que vive en los Estados Unidos? How long have you lived in the U.S.? All right. Notice that cuánto is more like how much time, and cuántos is how many. Cuántos, how many. Okay? All right, ¿cómo is our question, how? ¿Cómo le puedo ayudar hoy? How can I help you today? ¿Cómo se siente hoy? How do you feel today? ¿Cómo lo hace todo? How do you do it all? ¿Cómo se escribe? How do you write? Por ejemplo, you hear a name that you're not familiar with. ¿Cómo se escribe su nombre? How do you write your name? Essentially, how do you spell? And there's another one for how do you spell. ¿Cómo se deletrea? That's literally how do you spell. Both of these would be equally understood. ¿Cómo se escribe? ¿Cómo se deletrea? Okay? All right, let's practice a little bit. ¿Cómo se dice? How do you say who, for example? What is it? ¿Quién? All right, excelente. How about the question, who do you live with? Who do you live with? ¿Con quién vive? If I'm going too fast for you, put me on pause in between so you can think about it. Refer to your notes, that kind of thing. When is cuándo, okay? When is your birthday? When is your birthday? ¿Cuándo cumples años? Okay? So in this one, we're saying when is and then noun. Here is when do you complete years, okay? So it's a slightly different setup in Español. ¿Cuándo es su cumpleaños? We could also do that one, which is a little more literal translation of the syntax of the word order for that one, okay? Where? How do we say where in Spanish? ¿Dónde? Where do you work? ¿Dónde trabaja? How? How is cómo, okay? And how do you do it all? What's that question? ¿Cómo lo hace todo? ¿Cómo lo hace todo? What? What is qué? And what's bothering you today? Remember that question? ¿Qué le molesta hoy? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Para practicar con su compañero, to practice with your partner, primero identifique una pregunta personal para cada palabra interrogativa. So go through the 9 question words and identify what could be a personal question that you could ask your patients to build some rapport or to connect with them a little bit better. Hágale las preguntas a su compañero. So ask these questions then to your partner and you can begin some practice. And then hagan una lluvia de ideas juntos sobre respuestas comunes. One of the things that will help you with your comprehension is if you preload, pre-study in your head some of those common answers. And this goes for all your clinical conversations as well. Be pre-thinking about what the common answers are. And so do a brainstorm with your partner about all the common sort of everyday responses you tend to get from your patients to those questions. All right, if you don't have a conversation partner, head over to the Learning Medical Spanish Facebook group. Put yourself out there and say, hey, I'm working on my medical Spanish. Does anyone have time to be a combo partner? Anyone looking for a conversation partner? And then preguntas, if you've got questions about this lesson, post them in the comment section. We'll be glad to answer them for you. But that's it for today. Gracias por aprender español conmigo. Juntos, sí, mejoramos comunidades. Together, we truly are improving communities by improving your medical Spanish. Para más español, make sure you head over to the website, commongroundinternational.com. And if you would like to take a medical Spanish terminology test, you can sign up here for free at Certified Spanish and take as many free medical Spanish terminology tests as you would like. So get over there and begin testing your medical Spanish terminology. If you'd like to become a subscription member, it's really inexpensive, like $5 a month basically, and you can track your progress and build out categories of study, that kind of thing. Anyway, all right, amigos, muchas gracias. Have a great weekend. Nos vemos pronto en la próxima lección. And don't forget, our medical Spanish crash course is coming up, so be sure to get signed up for that. It's 10 days, totally free. We would love to have you a part of that. Hasta pronto, amigos. Ciao.